Hi, everybody, and welcome. You have all heard Plato. He is one of the big three of Greek philosophy. The students, the student of Socrates, teacher of Aristotle, basically a superstar. We all know his allegory of the cave now. So, the idea that we are all prisoners watching shadows on a wall and the real world is outside. It's a brilliant and mind bending idea. But here's the most important thing to know about philosophy it's a conversation, not a set of rules. Philosophy is philosophy is a conversation, not a set of rules. Just because Plato was a genius, it doesn't mean he was right about everything. In fact, people have been finding problems with his ideas for over 2000 years, starting with his own star student. And who that star student was? It was Aristotle himself. So, today we are breaking down the top three critiques of Plato in easy, simple terms. Let's get into it. Okay? The very first critique is the two worlds problem, also known as the theory of forms. So the Plato's biggest idea is the theory of forms. So the Plato का जो idea था, he believed that world we see is not the real world. It's a cheap, imperfect copy. The real world is a spiritual, unchanging, and perfect dimension that contains the forms, that is ideas. And there's a perfect form of a chair, a perfect form of a dog, and most importantly, perfect forms of justice, truth, and beauty. What? Justice, truth, and beauty. Our goal in life is to use our minds to understand that world, not this one. And the critique, who was the critique? We all want to know about it. So the critique, कौन था critique? His own very star student, Aristotle. He was the very first person to say, hold on, where's this world of forms? It's an unnecessary copy. Aristotle basically asked, why do we need two worlds? Why do we need two worlds? Isn't one complicated enough? He argued that form of a chair is just the idea of the chair that the carpenter had, combined with the matter, the wood. You don't need a perfect magical super chair floating in another dimension to explain the chair you are sitting on. It devalues our world. This is a big one. If Plato is right, then our physical world, our bodies, our senses, and our everyday's life are all less real and less important. Critics say that this is a pretty negative and impractical way to live. Science, for example, is all about observing this physical world, something Plato thought was a waste of time. So, our critique too is the perfect city. This idea came from his book, The Republic. So, Plato wrote a very famous book called The Republic, where he designed his perfect ideal state. It sounds great, but when you look at the details, it gets a little scary. Plato's ideas. So, what was Plato's idea? That the city would be ruled by all wise philosopher king. Society would be split into three classes: rulers, auxiliaries, and producers. So, in ruler class, there will be only philosophers who use their reasoning. In auxiliary class, there would be the soldiers, police, those who use their spirit and courage. In producer class, the farmers, craftsmen, and merchant who are driven by the appetite. So, in the city, the kind of ideal world Plato has imagined of, the rulers would decide everything. Rulers decide everything. Your job, where you live, your education, your family arrangements, and even who you marry. That is what a family arrangement is. So the critique, it's totalitarianism. Karl Popper was one of the critique of that concept. It is leading to to tally. I know the spelling. Yeah. No freedom, no democracy. The biggest criticism is that the republic is basically a totalitarian dictatorship. There is no voting, no individual liberty, no social mobility. You can't move up from the producer class. The state controls every aspect of your life for your own good. A 20th century philosopher, I have already told you about this, Karl Popper, he famously called Plato an enemy of the open society. In his book, The Open Society and Its Enemies. Okay, so he called Plato an enemy of the open society because his ideas, while well intentioned, could lead to a brutal, oppressive government. Second critique is censorship, the art police. Plato also wanted to ban most art. He believed that poets and playwrights were dangerous because they stirred up emotions which we saw as the lower part of the soul. In a city, only art that taught good moral lessons approved by the state would be allowed. For modern critics, this is a huge attack on free speech and artistic expression. So we have here number 3 critic, that was senses are useless. What was Plato's idea about it? Plato was a rationalist. He believed you get true knowledge only by using your pure reason and logic. Your senses just confuse you by showing the shadow world. So the critique is empiricism. Aristotle, again, his star student, and many others philosophers after him completely disagreed. They argued that knowledge starts with senses. This idea is called empiricism. How do you know what a dog is? You have seen hundreds of dogs. How does a scientist learn about gravity? By observing an apple fall. You can't just sit in a dark room and think your way to discovering DNA or the laws of physics. You have to go out, look, experiment, and measure the real world or physical world by rejecting the senses. Plato's philosophy is seen as fundamentally anti-science. So here we come into the conclusion part. Was Plato wrong? Does this mean Plato was bad or wrong? No. The reason we still critique Plato is because his ideas are so powerful. They force us to think. He set the stage for the entire history of Western philosophy. He asked the biggest questions: what is real, what is justice, what is the best way to live. Aristotle disagreed with him and in doing so invented his own massive system of philosophy. Modern philosophers critique the Republic because it forces us to defend our own ideas of democracy and freedom. Thinking about why you disagree with someone is just as important as agreeing with them, and that is the entire point of philosophy. Thank you for watching. What's your biggest critique of Plato? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you would like this video and the way I have explained it.